So, on Tuesday, basically what the biggest thing that y'all missed was, see, now it's not following me. So, this is the issue that I had on Tuesday.
Because the mask.
I freaking don't know. But if so, it's stupid. So the biggest thing y'all missed on Tuesday, as far as aside from the lecture, was you guys do have an assignment that's due next week. I'll have to look for sure, but it's designing an athletic training room. And then I'll give you all a budget. I basically gave everybody a budget of what what they can spend to fill it with tables, tape, stuff like that. Okay, so I'll send you guys an email as far as how we're going to do that, and then once I can get the lecture to upload, you can go watch it if you feel like. I would suggest watching it because there's a lot more information that you'll get from the lecture that you won't just get from the PowerPoint. So I would suggest go watch it if you can. So today, let's just jump in. Who's read chapter 3 already? Anybody read chapter 3? Okay, kind of, sort of. That's fine. So let's just jump right in. So we're going to talk about legal concerns. Legal concerns are a big deal for. Stop it. It is the mask. I see. I bet if I take this off, I'm gonna have to go back. Legal concerns are a big deal in athletic training because in today's society, in today's culture, everybody is huge on suing somebody. There's always lawsuits going on. And I'm sure you guys have heard it, but there's all kinds of stuff that people will sue for. And it's ridiculous. But as athletic trainers, we are held liable for our athletes or our patient care. Okay, so we are held liable for that. Okay, so it's very important for us to understand legal issues, legal concerns that we're going to have. So the potential exists that a technique that we use, a special test that we use, medication that we use, modalities that we use, what have you, are going to result in some kind of legal action that we could potentially be held liable for. Okay? So whatever techniques we use, whereas we are trained to do it, we're trained to do the special tests, whatnot, we could still be held liable for injuring someone further. That is always a possibility. Okay? So that's always a concern. So, what is liability? Liability is the state of being legally responsible for harm that you cause to someone else. So someone give me an example of a liability. What would an example of liability be?
Crashing into somebody.
Say again?
Crashing into somebody.
Yeah, so like car accident, right? Okay. Give me an example as far as an athletic standpoint is concerned. What would an issue with that be? Liability, yeah.
Working at a stream.
Say again?
Working at a stream.
Yeah, so we could be held liable if, let's say, Marquise comes down. Am I in everybody's way? Okay. Let's say Marquise comes down and he's got quad strain. Okay. What do we do? What do we do for a quad strain? Do you guys have an idea? Okay. Ice, stretch, rest, stuff like that. Okay. So he comes down with a quad strain, and I just decide, hey, I'm just going to stretch the crap out of it. I'm just going to stretch it, and it'll be better. It's not going to get better. Okay, it's going to get worse. He could hold me liable for the fact that I made his quad worse, or I tore his quad instead of just a strain. So he could hold me liable for that. Okay? There's a whole lot of things that you have to be careful with when you're dealing with healthcare. and you're in the athletic world, especially now, like I said in the slide before, everybody's sue happy. Everybody wants to sue somebody for something. Okay? So, liability. Okay? So negligence. Somebody give me an example of negligence before we jump into negligence. Does anybody know or have an idea? So negligence would be the failure to do something that you know how to do. So negligence is a failure to do something you know how to do. So an example of that would be, let's say, outside of athletics. Let's say everybody knows what they do if they come up on a car accident. Nobody's there. What do you do? What? if you're driving down the road and you see a car accident,
You call 911.
call 911 or stop. Okay? Somebody would call 911. You should stop and see if they're okay, right? And if they're not, you can start helping them, right? So if you come up on a car accident and you don't stop, you know you need to stop, but you don't stop. You don't call 911. You're negligent. You are negligent because you did not do what you know how to do or what you should do. Because it may not be your job. You may not be a healthcare worker or a first responder or certified in first aid, but Good Samaritan law says you should stop. You should stop. Okay? So that would be negligent if you don't. Okay? Negligence for me would be someone gets hurt out of football. Okay? Someone tears their ACL at a football game. Okay? I do a test, or, let's say I don't even do a special test to see if they're okay. I just am like, shake it off, rub some dirt on it, and get back out there. I'm negligent because they tore their ACL and I let them go. That's negligence. Or if someone gets hurt at practice, but I don't like that person, so I'm not going to help them. That's negligence. Okay? So there's different forms of negligence we all need to be aware of. Okay? So now we're going to kind of break down a standard of reasonable care. What I mean by standard of reasonable care, that's kind of what I was talking about with the car accident. Okay? Bring common sense into the equation. Okay? Bring a common sense approach into the equation. All right? So it's common sense if you come up on a car accident to stop. Wherever you sit is where you'll be for the rest of the year, just so you know. That's Butler policy now. So that would be a common sense approach. Okay? Another common sense approach would be, I'm hurt out of practice, and I know, or someone's hurt out of practice, I know they can't go anymore because they're hurting. I know they can't go anymore. I'm going to bring common sense into the equation and say, hey, it's probably not a good idea for them to continue. Okay? It's probably not a good idea for them to continue practice because they're just going to make it worse, right? Would everybody agree with that? That would be a common sense approach. Okay? Or for you guys who are athletes, common sense approach, listen to your body. If you're at practice and you get hurt, right? And I sit there and I say, I think you could probably go, but you're saying, I don't know that I can. My body's just telling me I can't. Listen to your body. You know your body better than I do. Okay? You know your body better than I do, so listen to your body. That's a common sense approach to the whole thing. Okay? Operate within the appropriate limitations of one's educational background. So basically, drastic example, I'm not going to perform an ACL surgery on someone, right? I'm not taught how to do that. You'll probably never walk again if I did. Okay? So I'm not taught how to do surgery. I wouldn't do surgery. Okay? So it's just like, people are taught how to, some people may not know how to play football. So they're not going to play football. Okay? Don't do something you don't know how to do. Okay? That will avoid a litigation. That'll avoid a litigation. Because, like I said, everybody now wants to sue somebody for something. So, don't do something you don't know how to do. Okay? So, establishing negligence. What we need to establish negligence is basically the duty of care. We need to know what their duty of care is. So what I mean by duty of care is, what should I have done as an athletic trainer? What should I have done that I did not do? Okay? And then I'm going to, the conduct of the defendant fell short of that duty of care. Okay, so what that means is my conduct, what I did, fell short of what I know how to do. Does that make sense? What I did, or what I didn't do, fell short of that. Okay? So I didn't help somebody who had an ACL tear. I didn't tell them to stay out of practice because they have a sprained ankle or what have you, which in turn made that sprained ankle turn into a season-ending injury. Okay? Because I didn't do something. Okay? So, the defendant caused injury to occur. So, I caused further injury. I caused more injury than what they already had. Right? Okay? And then I caused personal property damage. Okay? Those are all things that you need to establish negligence. You don't have to have all of them, but you've got to have some of those to establish negligence. See? Guys, it stopped again. Damn mask. There. So, did I cause property damage? Now, write these down. You guys need to know these. Okay? A tort. Know what a tort is. A tort is a legal wrong committed against a person. Okay? Legal wrong committed against a person. And usually, a liability is going to result from that. So, somebody tell me what liability is.
Liability check?
Pardon?
Like a liability check?
Yeah, what we just talked about it. What's liability? What would liability be? Marquise is held liable for something. So if he's held liable for something, what would that mean?
Responsible?
Yeah, he's responsible for
The harm.
the harm of another person. Correct? He's responsible for hurting me, for harming me. Right? So, which would result in a tort. Okay? So know what these are. Nonfeasance, misfeasance, malfeasance. Know what those are. Those are going to be very important. Nonfeasance is the failure to perform a legal duty. Okay? It's a failure to perform a legal duty. Screw this. So what I mean by that is it's a failure to refer. When I say failure to refer, I'm saying I failed to perform what I know how to do. So let's say I know you have a torn ACL. I know that. But I failed to report or to refer you on to our orthopedic surgeon for further examination. That would be nonfeasance because I failed to report that. Or I failed to refer you. So I did not. So remember it this way. This is how I remembered it. Nonfeasance. I did not do something. Nonfeasance. I did not do something. Or I did not do what I know how to do. I did not do what I know how to do. Malfeasance. Okay, malfeasance performs an action that is not his or hers to legally perform. Give me an example of a malfeasance. Someone just shoot me an example of malfeasance.
You giving surgery.
Okay, yeah, me giving surgery. Okay? I did something, I performed an action that I am not legally responsible or I'm not legally bound to do. I am not legally able to perform that. That would be malfeasance. Okay? You all have heard of malpractice, right? It's a malpractice lawsuit. Malpractice would be that doctor did not do or did something he is not legally able to do. You hear a lot of malpractice cases with doctors giving out medication, right? It's a malpractice suit. because they are legally not allowed to do that. Okay? So misfeasance performs an action incorrectly that he or she has the legal right to do. So they performed an action, they performed something they are able to do, but they did it incorrectly. So someone throw me an example of misfeasance. What would a misfeasance be?
Botched surgery.
Okay, botched surgery potentially. Okay, that could be a misfeasance. The surgeon did the surgery. He is legally able to do that surgery, but he did it incorrectly. Especially if he knows he did it incorrectly. Okay, that would be misfeasance. So remember, nonfeasance, I did not do something. I don't have one for malfeasance. I'm sorry, guys. Misfeasance, I missed something. Misfeasance, missed something. Remember that, okay? See if you can't. There we go. So, nonfeasance, I did not do something. Misfeasance, I missed something. I missed the mark. Okay, I missed something. That makes sense? It's a lot. Those are hard to remember, but they're important to remember. Okay, they're very important to remember. Okay? Proving negligence. Okay, and so now we talked about how we can establish negligence. Now we're talking about how we can prove negligence. Okay, how we can prove negligence. Caregiver did something a reasonably prudent individual would do. Okay, a reasonably prudent individual. So, prudent, something you know how to do, right? So, prudent is something you know how to do, but you're not doing it correctly. Okay? For a negligence suit to be successful, you must prove the athletic trainer had a duty to exercise that care. Reasonable care. They had the duty to exercise that reasonable care. The athletic trainer breached that duty. They breached that duty. They just ignored that. Okay? They ignored it. Okay? It's like a breach of contract. Someone broke that contract. I breached my duty. I did not do what I was supposed to do. Okay? Establish a connection between the failure to use reasonable care and the injury suffered by the individual. So, did what I did it cause that further harm? Okay, so we have to figure out if by me telling Marquise to go back in to a game after I know he had a sprained ankle, or after I know he broke a bone, me telling him to go back in, did that cause further damage? We got to prove that. Okay, so you got to be able to establish that connection. What I did it cause further damage? Does that make sense? So we know how to prove negligence. We know what we need to prove negligence, right? Okay, so we talked about establishing negligence and now proving negligence. Now we're going to do a little review real quick. What's a tort?
Legal wrongs committed against a person.
Okay, legal wrongs committed against a person. That results in liability. That can result in a liability. Okay? Now, most of you are going to look at your notes for this, and that's fine. If you can do it without looking at your notes, bonus points for you. Nonfeasance. What would nonfeasance be? You don't have to give me the definition, give me an example.
You did something wrong on a person? No, that's
Okay,
misfeasance.
that's misfeasance.
This one's
The
you
not
did something
is
that
like
you
you're
supposed
just-
that you didn't.
Say it again.
You did something that you did not do something that you knew how to do.
Yeah, so just remember, nonfeasance, I did not. I did not do something I was supposed to do, or I knew how to do. So what would malfeasance be?
You did something that you weren't supposed to do.
Perfect. Misfeasance. We talked about
Missed
that.
something.
Miss something.
Yeah.
So you missed something that you should have done.
Yeah.
You did it incorrectly. Okay, good job. So remember those, because those will be on the test. Those will be on the test, for sure. A bunch of this stuff will. Okay? So, still proving negligence. Individual possessing a higher level of training will possess higher level of competence. Okay? So, what I mean by that is a person who possesses a higher level of education they have further training. Okay? I have a master's degree. As somebody who has a master's degree in athletic training may possess a higher level of competence than someone who has a bachelor's degree in athletic training. Okay? Or someone who has a master's degree in athletic training is not going to have the same level of competence of that person who has a doctorate in athletic training. Common sense. The higher level of education, the more competence you have, correct? So the further you go in your education career, someone who has a bachelor's degree is going to have a higher level of education than someone who has an associate's degree. Right? Okay? It's just how it is. Okay? Once a coach or athletic trainer assumes the duty of caring for the athlete, that person has an obligation to provide appropriate care. So, once you guys as athletes step on this campus and you guys sign all your papers to be an athlete here, I assume responsibility for you guys. I have to provide appropriate care for you guys because I'm your athletic trainer. Okay? I have to provide that care. And I have to provide the best care that I can. I may not like the basketball team, but I got to provide care for them. I like the basketball team, by the way. But I may not like a certain team, but I have to provide care for that team. Right? I can't be choosy. Okay? I have to provide good care. Okay? It's just like yesterday or Tuesday. For those of you weren't able to watch the lecture, and I apologize because I couldn't get it up. But one of the things I said on Tuesday was one of the things that we like, or that will kind of eliminate, how do I word this? Will eliminate, tension in the athletic training room. We don't like our athletic trainers, our students, to date athletes. Why? Someone give me a reason why that's a thing. And that's not just here at Butler, that's everywhere. Why would we not want our athletic training students to date our athletes?
Distraction.
Pardon?
A distraction.
Okay, distraction. Okay, distraction. Now, what happens if you break up?
It causes tension between
That's a
them.
huge tension. Especially if it's not a good breakup. Right? If it's not a mutual breakup. Okay? It causes tension in the athletic training room. Right? It would be the same thing. I don't want, I don't pick and choose what sports that I work with. I gotta work with everybody. Even though I may not like it. Right? So, it's the same thing. That's why I said on Tuesday, we try to eliminate relationships in the athletic training room for that reason. Now, does it happen? No. Not all the time. But we try. Okay? Because I have seen the tension that it can cause if I have someone dating a football player and they break up. Oh, I don't want to take him. I don't want to take him. I'm not going to give him water. I'm not going to do this and this. I don't want to be on that group because we broke up and he doesn't like me anymore, or whatever. Okay, so it just causes some tension. Okay? All right, sovereign immunity. What do I mean by sovereign immunity? It's neither the government nor the individuals employed by the government can be held liable for negligence. So, the government or people employed by the government sometimes are not held for negligence. Okay? Okay? Sometimes they're not held liable for that. But that's going to vary state to state, or it can vary state to state. Now, Good Samaritan law. Okay? Good Samaritan law. Somebody tell me what the Good Samaritan law is. Or give me an example. Do you know? Who's heard the story of the Good Samaritan in the Bible? Anybody? Okay, so the Good Samaritan basically means that example of the car accident I gave. Okay? I gave an example of that car accident. You come up to a car accident. You are not a healthcare professional, nothing. You have no CPR, no first aid certification at all. But you come up to that car accident, and person is bleeding and not breathing. Okay? So you give CPR. You know how you give CPR. You have the basics and understanding of how to do CPR. You're not certified though. Okay? Unfortunately, that person dies while you're giving CPR. Or you start giving CPR and then 911 shows up because you've called them first. Okay? 911 shows up and they take them away, but they die. That the Good Samaritan law basically states that you cannot be held liable for something that you did because you were being a good Samaritan. You were being a good human being by stopping to help another human being out. That makes sense? Do what? Yes. Yes. So, Good Samaritan law, okay, provides protection against legal liability to one that provides care should something go wrong. So basically what I just said, right? So it provides protection should you do something or should something go wrong while you're performing an action, while you're giving first aid, while you're giving CPR. Okay? That would be the Good Samaritan law. Right? Okay. So, statute of limitations. Has anybody heard of statute of limitations? Statute of limitations is basically means how long somebody can be held accountable for something that happened. Okay? So, let's say you killed somebody 10, 15 years ago. That's a drastic example. But let's say that happened. Statute of limitations expires after a certain period of time. Now, I think that has changed with murder, but statute of limitations expires after a certain period of time. Okay? There's a statute of limitations on rape. Stuff like that. So a statute of limitations, when we're referring to athletic training, is a specific length of time an individual can sue for injury resulting from negligence. So, give an example, and this hasn't happened, but give an example. So, I do a test on someone, confirm they have a torn ACL, what have you, but I waited too long to refer them to that doctor, like I was giving the example earlier, okay? Which resulted in them ending their career, okay? They could come sue me for that, okay? Like I said, everybody's sue happy, right? So they could come sue me for that. But if it's after 7 years, they can't. So if it's after 7 years, statute of limitations expires. So they can't, okay?
You said after 10? 7.
7. Did it say 10 up there?
Not just like 5 or 7.
Okay, yeah. 7 is statute of limitations. Okay? So, it varies state from state, but generally ranges, this says 1 to 3 years. Okay? I'll get statute of limitations for us keeping our medical records are 7. For sure. Okay? This, 1 to 3 years. So, go off of this. What this says, 1 to 3 years.
So like if I kill someone,
No. I'm not. That's changed. No, I know. That's changed. There is a statute of limitations on murder. Or there is not a statute of limitations on
or
murder.
if like we commit a crime,
Yeah.
it's been like 3 years.
Yes. Yeah. So, if you went and robbed somebody, and they didn't catch you for 3 years or whatever it is, they can't prosecute you. Something like that. Now, I'm not condoning any bad, but that would be statute of limitations. Clock begins at the time the negligent act results in a suit, or from the time of injury is discovered following a negligent act. So in this case, we're talking about injuries. Okay? So for this sake, for this statute of limitations, we're talking about an injury and neglect. Okay? So, the time the clock starts is at the time of the negligent suit. Torn ACL, I don't do anything about it. That's negligence. That's when this clock starts. Okay? Clock starts at the time of the negligent injury or negligence happened. Okay? So that's when the clock starts. Right? Minors generally have an extension. If you're under 18, sometimes you get an extension for that. Okay? So assumption of risk. Who's that athlete in here? You had to sign assumption of risk waiver, right? What did that assumption of risk waiver say? Or did you read it? That assumption of risk waiver states that you are aware by playing a sport at Butler Community College that you will or can get hurt and have an injury at Butler Community College. That's basically what that assumption of risk waiver states. Okay? So, individual is made aware of inherent risks. Like I just said, you guys have been made aware, whether you read it or not, you've been made aware that you could have an injury at Butler Community College and the risk of playing a sport at Butler Community College. Okay? It's expressed in a written waiver that we keep on file. Why would I want it in a written waiver? Why would I want that written?
To go back to
Okay.
if there's any issues.
So, someone gets hurt. Okay. They choose to come at us and say, I didn't realize I could get injured playing football at Butler Community College. Oh, really? You signed it. That's why we want it in writing. Correct? Okay? So that's why we would want that stuff in writing. It can be used as a defense against an individual in a negligent suit. Kind of what I just said. It does not excuse the overseers from exhibiting reasonable care. So it doesn't give me the right or the authority to neglect you or to not do something because you signed that waiver. I still have the responsibility to give you accurate care and reasonable care and treatment. I still have that right or that responsibility. Okay? Okay, so often a waiver will stand in court except in incidents of fraud, misinterpretation, or disuse. Okay, what I mean by that is fraud or misinterpretation. So, let's say you guys didn't read your assumption of risk. And I explained it to you, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, and you signed it. But that's not really what it said. Right? So we misinterpreted the waiver. That makes sense? Okay, we misinterpreted it. Okay? What are some ways that we could reduce liability? Now I moved the slide so you can't read. I want to hear what you guys have to say. What are some ways that we could reduce the risk of being held liable for something? Yeah. What? Okay. So what would some others be? Okay. We're talking about we're going to try to establish a relationship with the athlete, with the parent. Okay? Establish a good working relationship with athletes, parents, patients, and coworkers. Okay? If you establish that good relationship, this doesn't excuse us from doing what we're supposed to do. Okay? But if I establish a good relationship with one of my athlete's parents, and I do a special test on that athlete, and I miss something, sometimes because you have a good relationship, you know what? We're not going to overlook it, but we're not going to sue you because we know you. You're a good person. You honestly did not, you didn't neglect him. You did what you were supposed to do. You just missed it. So we're not going to sue you, right? We're not going to hold you liable for that, for something. That's why it's important to develop a good relationship with athletes, working relationship with athletes and parents and coworkers. Because if they know you, if you know me as a person and you know that I'm a good person and I'm going to absolutely give you the best care that I possibly can give you, but I just missed something little, would you hold me liable for that? If you truly know that I'm going to give you the best care that I possibly can, and up until that moment, I have treated you with the utmost respect, I've helped you, and I have done everything for you to help you get better overcome that injury, but I just missed something very little, would you hold me liable for that? Because you know me. You know that I would not purposely do that to you. That's what I mean by building a good working relationship, especially with parents as well. Okay? That's what I mean by that. Develop an emergency action plan. We read about EAPs in chapter 2. What's an EAP? Y'all remember? It's an emergency action plan. Okay? Why is it important for us to have an emergency action plan? Do you guys know? Okay, in case there is an emergency. Okay? We have an emergency action plan in every facility that we have a sport at. We have an emergency action plan for the stadium. We have an emergency action plan for the athletic training room, the baseball field, the practice fields, the soccer field, everywhere. Okay? So an emergency action plan would outline exactly what is going to happen and what we're going to do in the case of an emergency. Okay? What we're going to do in the case of an emergency. Okay? Who's going to call 911? Who's going to meet the ambulance at the stadium, at the entrance, at the gate, at the door? Who's going to meet the EMS? All of that. It'll break it down. Okay? That's why it's important to have an EAP. Become familiar with medical history of individuals under your care. So, if someone downstairs has epilepsy, somebody on our team has epilepsy, let's say, I need to know that. Why would that be important for me to know if someone has epilepsy?
So you have to do it.
Yeah, so I know that, hey, I need to be aware while they're at practice, they are epileptic. They could go into an epileptic seizure. What happened? They could just start having a seizure. Okay? So it's important for me to know medical history. That's also going to help in reducing the risk of litigation. If I know that you have seizures, I'm aware of that, so I'm prepared. Because I don't know when it's going to happen. It could happen today, it could happen tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now, or next semester. But I'm ready. I'm prepared. And I make everybody aware that our athlete has seizures. So if we're traveling somewhere, okay, I make that other athletic trainer aware. Hey, Marquise has seizures. Just be ready. Okay? Be ready. If it happens. Okay? And then maintain adequate records. Maintain adequate records. So we keep records on everybody. We have injury reports on everybody. You obviously, everybody's had to turn in physical. Okay? We keep all of that on file. Why do you think it would be important for us to have physicals on file? Okay, we can go back to it later. But it also clears, you guys have got physicals from doctors. So that doctor has physically looked at you and has examined you and said you are cleared for physical activity. If we don't have that on file, you don't play. That's why a lot of you, if you have come in to play sport and you don't have physical yet, that's why you're not participating. Because you don't have that in yet. The minute you get that in, we let you play. Okay? The other side of it is too, insurance purposes. When you move on, when you're at a secondary school, at a college, what have you, every athlete has secondary insurance through the college. Okay? So if you are at practice, tear your ACL, your primary insurance is going to be billed first, and then our secondary will pick it up. So you probably won't be paying anything out of pocket, okay, potentially. However, if you don't have that physical on file, we don't cover you. Our insurance does not cover you if you don't have a physical on file. That's why it's very important to have physicals on file and keep records for insurance reasons, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Okay? Alright, I want to talk about this. You guys can look into this. It's just more reducing the risk of litigation stuff. Okay? It's just more of that. So you guys can look at that here later. Okay? Follow physician's orders. Okay? Follow the doctor's orders. I have to have my license every year signed off by a doctor. Okay? My boss, my main boss, my overseer, is our team physician. Okay? He is my boss. My big boss. I have to follow him. If he says that you don't play basketball Saturday, I can't go against that. If he says that you broke your little finger on whatever day and you can't play basketball, can't do anything about it. Even though I think you can play, because really, who needs a pinky to play basketball?
Nobody.
Exactly. So I know that you could probably play with a broken pinky, but he said no. So I can't go against that. Because if I do, I could get in trouble. I could get in big trouble for that. Okay? And then use common sense. Talk about that here in a minute. Alright, I'm going to stop this for a second.